Thank you so much for attending this wild event. We want to remind everybody to mute. We're going to mute everybody, but if you unmute, please remember to mute again. Everyone, we ask that you use the chat if you have any questions on the discussion topics. And we'll keep an eye on the chat as we're presenting and respond to any questions or comments. As you just saw, we are recording this and we'll send an email in the future with a link to this information, but we do plan to edit out any personal information or stories that anybody might be willing to share on the topic. So we hope that the recording doesn't inhibit you from sharing a personal story. We will remove that when the recordings get shared. But we wanted to send this out to the greater community for anybody who couldn't attend at this time. So why are we having this event? As many of you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Wild thought it was important to discuss the challenges that we're facing as working women and offer suggestions on how to reduce stressors in our life, since making time for ourselves is essential to the quality of life. Each of our sessions is followed by a yoga class, and we hope that you find these presentations beneficial. The first speaker today is Kim Daly. Kim has been a lighting designer for Handcraft Lighting for 6.5 years. She's also on the NYC Wild Committee for about the same amount of time and rising to a committee leader position about a year ago. She has no training in the mental health field, but Kim has scoured the internet looking for useful talking points regarding stress management. And she hopes that you find the information useful today and encourages anybody who needs specific answers to seek out a mental health professional. We will have a mental professional on the session next week, and we hope that anybody attending now will continue to attend these sessions, and we hope that you guys get something out of this. So Kim, if you want to start off, and then Kim's going to introduce the yoga instructor after the session.
Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate it. So everybody who is able to attend today, thank you very much for taking the time out of your lunch period to do so. We appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just made a couple different slides, and as Chelsea noted, this is going to be partial discussion, group discussion, so feel free to chime in. And again, all that personal information will be edited out before the information goes public. So this is our first of 3 sessions. We're very excited to have the opportunity to talk about mental health. And my presentation is going to talk mainly about stress. So starting off, can everybody see my presentation okay? Okay, great. Wanted to start off just talking about a little bit about some general stress management tips, and really kind of in terms of your body and what you can do from a body perspective to make sure you're starting off on the right foot. And I'm sure most of us know these already, but it's always good to be reminded. The first is to eat balanced and nutritious meals, starting with breakfast. I'm going to throw in a lot of personal anecdotes here, so bear with me. But I don't know about you, but if I maybe had a little stressful day at work, 5, 6 o'clock rolls around, I might go pour myself a glass of wine, then I'll have some dinner, then I might treat myself to some cake for dessert, and then I don't know, I don't feel very well afterwards. So I think that if we could just start off very simply by eating healthy food, then we're going to be in a good frame of mind. We're going to feel better about ourselves. Usually I end up feeling guilty because I shouldn't have eaten as much dessert as I did. So, if we take the time to put nutritious fuel in our body, then we will, perform better under stress, and maybe be a little less stressed. So the second point is get a good night's sleep. I think we can all agree that's critical. Sometimes it's difficult when we're mulling over deadlines and personal issues and stuff like that's going on. I know I personally am not a very good sleeper, but one of the things that I've noticed is if I get myself into a little routine. So for example, maybe I take a shower and then I go into bed and then I read for a half an hour. So I've kind of started like my nighttime routine. So my body knows, okay, now it's time to read a book. Okay, now is the time to turn off the light. So you're kind of preparing yourself to get a good night's sleep. So It just sets us up for the next day a little more rested. Number 3, exercising. Whoever does exercise, I'm sure you'll agree with me that you get the endorphin high. You always feel good about yourself personally, and even though you've used a lot of energy while you're exercising, for some reason it feels like you end up with more energy after you exercise. So exercise is always a good idea if you can fit it into your schedule. Number 4, express your feelings. You're not alone. A lot of times we have things going on in our lives and maybe we're embarrassed or maybe we feel like nobody else can relate. But a lot of times if we just say whatever it is out loud, somebody's going to say, you know what, I've been there too, and I get it. Or maybe they'll even have a tip on how to, help in some way. Like if some kind of tip that says, I've been through there and I did X, Y, Z, and it seemed to help for me. So sometimes keeping stuff bottled up with no outlet isn't the healthiest thing to do. We end up mulling stuff over. And sometimes just by saying the words out loud, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. You're just like, that felt so good. I got that off my chest. So that's another easy way for us to maybe lighten our stress load. Number 5, if possible, get to the root of the cause and see if maybe you can even remove the stressor or try a coping strategy. A good example of this is, maybe there's somebody that you don't care for too much. So just a group of people are getting together and that person's going to be there. That person's going to set you off. Just pass on that outing. You don't have to go. Why put yourself into a situation that is going to cause you stress and make you unhappy? If it's avoidable, then avoid it. Number 6, volunteering time and services. So all the people that are part of WILD, thank you for volunteering. I appreciate it. But hopefully in addition to it helping out WILD, hopefully you feel as an individual that it makes you feel good as well. Like you feel like you're contributing to the greater good. If you participate in organizations outside of WILD, like maybe you work at a food pantry or something like that, like you're helping other people. And that in itself makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're contributing and therefore reduces your stress because you have a better outlook on life and maybe even realize that your life's not so bad compared to some other people's lives. So it's always good to give back if you're able to. Number 7, reconnect with people you love. Now that we are able to open our doors and see people in person a little bit more, which P.S. we are having our first WILD event in person on June 1st. So we're very excited about that. But reconnect with the people that you care about or the people that make you feel good. Seeing someone that you care about, so easy to smile, so easy to laugh. All of those emotions are positive emotions that are going to help us to deal with stress. And then finally, if there's no shame at all in seeking professional help if you need to. Again, just saying things out loud, getting things off your chest, having somebody say, I understand what you're saying, have you tried this? Those are all very valid ways to deal with stress and to, enlighten your load if possible. So those are some general stress management tips. Some other ideas besides the ones that people just listed, maybe you don't have a lot of time, but you need something, you've got a deadline, whatever that is, and you just only have a minute or two, but you're feeling super stressed. These are some ideas that maybe are quicker, but things like deep breathing, yoga is going to come up next. Chelsea mentioned art, how she likes to do art. Aromatherapy is another one. So these are just very simple things that you might be able to take 5-10 minutes if that's all you have. Just step away for a minute, collect your thoughts, and then go back into, whatever your day holds. Tara mentioned journaling. So that's on this list as well. I personally love lists. I love making a list of all the things that I have to do, 10 things on my list, cross them off one by one by one. And then at the end of the day, boom, it's all done. And I feel like this is a huge stress relief for me because I know that I accomplished everything that I needed to do. Nothing's hanging over my head. So that's another idea in terms of organization that you might be able to reduce stress. Reduce information overload. I am very guilty of looking for the 3 bullet points to something. And if somebody starts telling me they're what I consider a long-winded story about the interior designer who wanted red floral wall coverings, but she wasn't sure if it was going to match the carpet. And then, they ended up changing the floor altogether. And I kind of tune it all out. So if by reducing some of the information and just maybe even saying to somebody at the beginning, like, these are the things that I need, boom, 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 this is the highlights, boom, 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 and then go on with the flowery, detailed story. But that way, at least we have the information that we need and we can focus on that, reduce some of the other, what I consider excess information. Decluttering your physical space. Just the other weekend, I walked around my house and I was just like, oh, it's what just been sitting there for like a week. Or I'll look at my desk and I'll be like, oh, there's papers everywhere. Just by cleaning it up and making it organized and putting things where they're supposed to be makes you less stressed because you look around and you're like, I know where everything is. I don't have to worry about that pile of mail because I've already taken care of it. So, decluttering your physical space is a good one to reduce stress as well. Kind of along with the mail, deal with your paperwork right now. If it's something that's simple or maybe even not so simple, instead of letting it sit there and you have to look at it, just do it, get it done. Even if it's not fun, you'll still feel better when it's finished and you know that it's not hanging over you anymore. And then I think this last one, I try to do this every day, and I think it's super important for me, and I think it would help a lot of other people as well, is plan your day the night before. If you took a look at my calendar right now, you would see, it's got all my work meetings on it. It's got all the deadlines for projects on it, but it also has a list of, like yesterday, I wrote, like, these are the 3 things I need to do tomorrow morning when I get to my desk. So when you get to your desk, you're not like, all right, what do I want to start now? And you're kind of fumbling through, wasting a half an hour because you're not really sure. Whereas if you got those things written down, you're like, okay, starting this project because that's what's on my list. You're already giving your head start, and it's not, again, weighing on your head at the end of the day as far as when I can't forget I have to do this tomorrow. You've already written it down and it's done. Moving on a little bit closer to work stress management ideas. We mentioned this a little bit before, but avoid. If it's possible to escape some of the minor stresses, like seeing someone that you don't enjoy being with, or an after work activity, or, maybe you get to pick your partner on a project, pick those things that you know you have to do. And then it's okay to say no if you're not in a good headspace to the things that are not mandatory. Alter for the second A means communicate your expectations clearly. So, and I have a habit of doing this sometimes too, where maybe I'll say something and I know I haven't said it very clearly. So try to collect my thoughts before I write it down, or write it down so that way I can forward that information on to my colleague. And so they're not second guessing what my intentions were. So accept when avoiding and altering don't work. You have to work with that person you're not that excited to work with. You don't have a choice. Just accept it. Try to limit and alter things that you know could be potential problems or pitfalls. And then the fourth one, adapt, learn from the past, say, okay, well, this worked, this didn't work. if I have a project deadline on Friday and I know my colleague's not going to meet it, then I need to tell them that it's due on Wednesday, or I need to follow up with them on Tuesday and Wednesday to see how they're doing, if there's any, issues as far as not making the Friday deadline. So, by instead of just going, oh, this person never gets this done on time, like, look, what can we do to get that stress off our back? What can we do to, make it less stressful for ourselves? And then there's been a lot of research that says that if you just play a game, it's a good way to reduce stress for a couple minutes. And we all have our phones with us. Their games are engaging, they're enjoyable. According to the research, they result in dopamine secretion, which makes you feel good. And also on this slide, it says, that 80% of workers are stressed while managing their daily activities, and 75% of adults encounter moderate or high levels of stress. So the point is that we all have stress. You're not unusual. I'm not trying to minimize your stress by any means, but I'm just saying that you're not alone. And it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to reach out to others if you do feel stressed. And then my last slide is, I personally have not played any of these games, but these are the games that the research suggests that people are enjoying as stress relievers. I actually started playing Wordle, and I think other people are doing it as well. But that's usually when I start my day. I turn on my computer, I do Wordle, and then I get to work. So that's a good way for me to kind of transition to my work day. So if anybody has any questions, please ask. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the yoga portion. Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Kim Daly. I am a lighting designer for Howard Amp Lighting Design, and I am the chapter leader for Wild New York City. Thank you all for coming to today's Wild event. Please take this moment to confirm you are on mute. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat function. We will keep an eye out for questions while we are presenting. We are recording this event, and we will send out an email in the future with the link to the presentation. We will edit out any personal information and stories that attendees share, so please feel comfortable participating. One housekeeping item before we get started, we are having an in-person paint event on June 1st. So if you haven't already registered, please go to the Wild website to register for that. It's going to be fun, and we get to see everybody in person, which is awesome. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce Brittany Nagel. Brittany's international teaching experience in Canada, Taiwan, and Hong Kong inspired her to develop the passion to support her students' mental health needs. It was through these teaching assignments that she realized the importance of helping others acquire the skills and the strategies to develop resiliency and to build self-esteem. This encouraged her to pursue a master's degree in mental health counseling and to become a therapist. Having gained experience as a therapist in New York City, Brittany works with adolescents and adults who struggle with adjustment disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and everyday stressors. Working collaboratively with her clients, Brittany assists them to set healthy boundaries, manage a work-life balance, and to live more authentic, fulfilling, and happy lives. After Brittany's presentation, we are going to be having a 20-minute yoga session as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you for that introduction. So my name is Brittany, as you've heard, and I'm a mental health counselor. First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here today and taking time out of your day to learn about boundaries that you can set in your personal life and work life to help avoid workplace burnout. I also want to give a special thank you to Kim and Tara for inviting me here today. So in short, I'm a therapist in New York State where I predominantly focus in boundary work to help women set healthy boundaries with themselves and others. Healthy boundaries are necessary components of self-care. It's really without boundaries that we feel depleted, taken advantage of, taken granted for, and in serious cases, we can experience abuse if we lack healthy boundaries. So it's why I help women set and enforce their limits, protect their self-esteem, maintain their self-respect, and establish healthier relationships in their life. So Creating boundaries is empowering. I'm excited to share what I've learned with you. But why are they important for the workplace? Well, without them, workplace burnout can happen. Workplace burnout is real. And during COVID, I think we can all agree that it only got worse. A survey from the career site Indeed conducted during the spring found that more than 2/3 of workers reported that they felt that workplace burnout had gotten worse during the pandemic. And I'm sure many of you resonate with that statement, myself included. However, burnout isn't just a pandemic problem. A Deloitte survey back in 2015 found that already 77% of professionals surveyed said that they experienced burnout in their current workplace. But I'm not here to bore you with percentages and facts. To start, I want to ask you if anyone here is experiencing the following symptoms. 1, lack of motivation. So that could be that you have feelings of energy depletion or even exhaustion in or outside of your job or workplace. 2, a lack of pleasure in your current job. This is where perhaps you are increasing your mental distance from your job, or you experience negativity and cynicism related to your job. 3, lack of belief in your ability to complete tasks. So you're experiencing reduced professional effectiveness. Well, if you are, then you're most likely experience workplace burnout. Burnout, in simple terms, is continued stress that you have not dealt with. Well, stress is something we can handle and control. Burnout is something that we can't. And that's why it's important to recognize the symptoms that I just stated and to take time off work when you can. So I like to suggest to my clients when they're working with workplace burnout to take mini breaks throughout the day. There's a popular productivity hack called Pomodoro, and it's a technique which you work for 20 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. So you'd set your alarm and you'd continually do this throughout the day. However, that might not be the most effective for everyone, or you might not be able to do it in your workplace, especially if you have meetings or clients to attend to. So perhaps one for myself that I like to do is I like to take at least 2 to 3 20-minute breaks throughout my work day to recharge, whether it's going for a walk, a quick yoga session, meditation. I find that truly disconnecting from my work and my phone, my computer, helps me be more productive throughout my day. And I want to give you 2 other exercises that can help you ground yourself. One is a breathing exercise, which is called 4-7-8. And the importance of this is that you're breathing in for a shorter amount of time than you are breathing out, and this will reduce your heart rate. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, and then you hold it for 7 seconds, and you exhale for 8. Some people don't like holding, and that's okay. I just say, go ahead and just start by breathing in for 4 seconds and releasing for 8 seconds. As long as your outer breath is going for a longer amount of time than your in breath, then you're actually able to regulate your body. Some people don't like breathing exercises. That's okay. It's about finding something that works for you. Another one is a grounding exercise, which is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's where you start by 5, acknowledging 5 things around you that you can see. I like to do this when I'm outside so I can acknowledge the pretty nature around me. 4 things that you can touch around you. So if I'm sitting on the grass, I'll note how I feel the texture. Maybe I think about how the air feels that day. 3 things that I can hear, 2 things that I can smell, and then 1 thing that I can taste. And that just really helps you center yourself and bring yourself back into your body. So with that, that's through your workday. But I also like to hold myself accountable and disconnect from work after hours by putting, once again, my work laptop or phone away or on silent. And I like to be present with my family and friends and doing other activities or my hobbies, things that leave me feeling full and excited and happy with life, because everything isn't just about work. And it's when we take too much focus on work that we start getting that workplace burnout. Lastly, taking a larger break by using my vacation time to disconnect from work and really getting that full reset that you might need. Maybe it's after a big work project, whenever you feel like you need that big set of rest. I feel like taking a vacation, which we have vacation days, is good because it is that full disconnect, kind of like resetting our system. So that's all good, but the issues with breaks and works is that our boss is not going to hold us accountable for them. Instead, we need to start practicing boundaries to better protect our own mental health and taking those much needed breaks. So this is where I want to start my presentation on boundaries, and I'm going to share just a presentation I made on this. Okay, so can you all see that screen? Great. So what are boundaries? Well, in simple terms, boundaries are the commitments and actions we take in order to stand up for ourselves. They're important because they help us create a sense of safety in our interpersonal relationships. A person with healthy boundaries is able to say no to others when they want to, but they are also just as comfortable as opening themselves up to intimacy and close relationships. People with healthy boundaries have a strong sense of self. Boundaries help you find what you are comfortable with and how you like to be treated by others. They help you honor your needs, goals, feelings, and values. So it's important to know that boundaries can change over time. It's very normal for boundaries to shift as we gain new or more life experiences, or we get comfortable with our sense of self. Just always know that you deserve to feel safe and respected in your workplace, and boundaries play a big part in creating healthy workplace relationships. Do you see the second slide now? It opens in a different way for some reason.
Yes.
Great. There are like two overarching themes of boundaries in the sense that they can fall into two categories. So it's internal boundaries and external boundaries. So internal boundaries are just, in simple terms, the commitments and agreements that we make with ourselves about what is acceptable or unacceptable. So when I was talking earlier about making breaks for yourself, these are going to be personal boundaries that you make with yourself. But there's also external boundaries, and those are the statements or actions that we make to others to establish what we want or don't want. So for example, what we were talking about earlier, just, maybe you want to make a commitment to yourself to put your self-care first. So maybe on a work trip, you don't want to go to after hours drinks or after hour dinners. So you make that commitment to yourself, well, stating that external boundary to other people and saying like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. And you also don't have to justify your boundaries. It's always a good thing to remember. Some other examples include, so internal boundaries, these are the examples: sticking to your new promises to set more breaks throughout the day that we talked about, being more kind to yourself, especially the last one, not beating yourself up when you make a mistake. So perhaps you are unable to put your self-care first one day, just be kind to yourself, try better the next day. Another one is making the decision to not accept criticism from others, especially in the workplace. This can be a good way to help yourself and just protect your peace. External boundaries is asking your work boss or colleagues, for example, to respect your personal time off. Whether it's, after work hours, you having that time away from the office and not being contacted, or if it's on your vacation. Another one is asking someone to respect your personal space. And also, I always like to note that external boundaries should work both ways. It's you respect theirs and they respect yours. And we have different levels of personal space for different people. I'm very comfortable with my mom giving me a hug, but I won't be comfortable with my boss giving me more than a handshake, for example, without maybe a conversation with the HR. So another external boundary is asking someone to respect your privacy and respecting others people's privacy for privacy too, especially in the workplace. You'll see your personal relationships are different. And then when you're in work, you have different levels of privacy. And now I'm in this 6. I just want to make sure. Yeah, so for here we have our 6 types of boundaries. We have physical, and those are boundaries around your physical space and sexuality, i.e. who can touch you. Like I said, this will change in different relationships. Like I'll let my mom hug me, but I'm going to prefer that handshake by my boss. Emotional, these are boundaries around your feelings and protecting them, i.e. limitations on who you share personal information with, which once again changes drastically depending on if it's a work relationship, a client relationship. Communication, boundaries around how you talk to yourself and others, because all of these boundaries have internal and external boundaries. So this one would be, for an internal would be how you speak to yourself, and then external is like how can others speak to you, and also how do you speak to others. With intellectual boundaries, I think especially during such a very heightened time in society, with things becoming very political, like I respect my own beliefs, but I also make sure that I respect others around me. I might not agree, but I'm going to be respectful, especially in the workplace. Time. I think time is so prevalent when it comes to the workplace, because this is boundaries on how you use your time. So how much time do you allot for work, your relationships, and your hobbies? So this is where you make sure that you are dictating or you're dedicating your time to work during your work hours, but then after hours, you're taking time for yourself, for your family, and your hobbies. Because if you continue to work on one task and just doing work all day, you're not going to be more productive. You're actually going to experience burnout, and you're not going to be a help to your company or to yourself. And the last one's material. And these are boundaries around money and possessions, i.e. the limitations on like who you share your resources with and who you do not. Like I'll let my sister borrow my car, but I might not let like Jane from the office borrow my car. That just, you have different boundaries. With that being said, let's go into examining your boundaries at work. So these are some like top 5 ones that you can do right now to help yourself. You can, 1, examine your boundaries. Often a too busy workload is the result of saying yes to too many commitments at work that you don't have time for or energy to complete. So start by setting those boundaries by sticking to the hours in your contract, unless you are paid extra for overtime. Say no to extra projects that you don't have time for. Use all of your rest days to actually rest, and use all of your vacation. Using all of your vacation days. Learn how to delegate tasks and say no. Saying yes all the time doesn't make you a good employee. So everything's good and said, but how do you state a boundary? So this is where we have the 6 steps to stating a boundary. And I do want to be mindful of the time. So I'm going to kind of quickly rush through this. So for this example, I wanted to use the example of, let's say you were feeling, you have a work colleague that you perhaps you have a work colleague that isn't acknowledging the work that you also put into projects, whether this is a boss or a colleague, it doesn't matter in this situation. So if you're feeling upset about this, how do you state that you would like to have your work acknowledged? And this is where you use the 6 steps. So first, you're going to state how you feel about the situation, and always make sure to start this with an I statement. Starting something with a you makes someone very defensive, and it's not always about the other person, it's about how you feel. So with this, I would say in the situation, I might say, I feel underappreciated, or I might say, I feel disrespected. And then 2, you want to move on to let the person know about the specific action or behavior that caused you to feel this way. So in this situation, I would say, well, I feel disrespected when you don't recognize me for the work that I do in a meeting. And then moving on to the 3rd step, it's always good to express gratitude to a person, especially if this person means a lot to you. Show appreciation to the relationship. So whether this is a mentor or a boss or a colleague, talk about what that work relationship means to you, and it will help this person be more receptive to your request, while also being less defensive. So I might say, I appreciate our work relationship and how we are better able to support each other. But it means a lot to me when you also acknowledge the work that I put into your projects, our projects. And then moving on to the step 4, where you state your boundary in a clear, consistent, and non-confrontational way. You'd say, I'd appreciate it in the meetings if you would mention to our leadership team that I also helped on the project. And adding this in an agreement, so it also doesn't seem very one-sided, that's not only the other person, is good by stating it as an agreement where you both take equal responsibility in successfully keeping this new boundary. So you might say, can we agree that we will both acknowledge each other's hard work to leadership when we are presenting a project? So then you're both taking ownership over this new boundary that you want to establish in the relationship. And this can be for work relationships, but also probably more for personal relationships, is if this person keeps unfortunately not respecting your boundary, restate the boundary. It's up to you how many times you want to give, how many extra times you want to give that person to learn this new boundary. It also depends on the type of a relationship. You know, if it's your boss, you might not be able to distance yourself from this person, but maybe if it's a client or maybe if it's a colleague, you could create some more distance with this relationship. Once again, just going to these 6 steps. What about if someone was violating or like violating your time outside of work hours is kind of what I like to see this as, because this is a violation. But if someone's disrespecting your time outside of work hours and contacting you and demanding your help after work hours, how might you go about in a healthy manner to state your boundary? First, you try to figure out how you're feeling about the situation. Is it because you feel overwhelmed when someone's contacting you after work hours? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel like they don't appreciate your time? Your feeling is yours, so figure out what you feel and then move on to stating the issue. So for this issue, it's when you contact me after work hours. Definitely express gratitude with this person. So in this instance, I would say like, well, clearly this person appreciates my insight. That's why they're trying to get my input outside of work hours. So I'd say, I appreciate that you value my insight, but I need to set a boundary. And I'd say, I'd appreciate it if you only contact me about work related topics during our work hours, because I also don't know, like some people might be friends with their colleagues or their boss, and it might be okay to talk about other things outside of the work relationship, but just make sure you're not talking about work outside of work hours. And then make an agreement. You know, can we agree to only talk about work projects, or perhaps it's someone you don't want to talk to outside of work hours, you're allowed to set that boundary, then say, or can we agree to only contact each other during working hours? So decide what's the boundary that you need to set with this person, and then repeat and set boundary violations when needed. So for me, a boundary violation will just be, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, and I'm not going to respond to your email until the next morning, the working day. Or I'll get to it within 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on what my work agreement is. And that's how I set my boundaries. I'll just make sure that I'm working within the realms of what my work scope allows me. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I wanted to leave some time now to talk about boundaries and work, and find out if anyone had any questions about boundaries. Well, I can't wait till you all get into positions of power and change the culture and where you're going to future be bosses at, because everyone's going to be very grateful when you are the next leaders. And with that being said, I noticed that Kristen logged on. So I was wondering if you guys wanted to take that time to recenter yourself, and let's do some yoga.
Thank you again, Brittany. That was a wonderful presentation. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim. And yeah, just a brief introduction. I'm Mariana Gutierrez. I was a lighting designer for the last 6 years and just recently changed onto the sales side, and now I'm working with Coronet. And also recently, well, more like beginning of the year, I feel like the year has passed so quick. I started volunteering with Wild, and I was assigned to the committee that was in charge of like putting all of these amazing presentations together. And it's personally a topic that's important, very important to me, as I know it is important for each and every one of you. That's why you showed up. And this is rather than me presenting, because I'm by no means an expert. It's more a talk, right? Like it's like the cover says, it's a talk, and it's about self-care. And I intentionally divided the word as self plus care, because there's a lot of conversations out there about self-care routine, etc., etc. And today I think that what I would love to take out from this is a conversation, and really make it more fluid with everybody who is on this call, to put on the table and really talk about what is this thing that we know as self-care, and how do we live it. And to do that, I put together this really quick roadmap of what we're gonna do during this, like the next 20 minutes. So yes, like I said, a self-care can be a really big word. And I thought that maybe it would be good to like break it down to first, we're gonna stop and like talk about what is self, what encompasses the self. Then we can move into adding care to that thing that we know as the self. We're going to have, of course, a moment to share our experiences, because I think that that is where the true value of this presentation is, like sharing and listening to each other, and seeing how each and one of us experiences that. And for those who of you that feel like maybe I don't feel like I really have a routine, then we can also talk about how can we kickstart some habits of self-care. How can we start like putting that into our everyday, how we can just start right here, right now. And we're gonna close with just an overall like conclusion about what would be that ideal self-care routine. Okay. So yeah, let's start with defining self. This is gonna be like a very minimal and very brief presentation. Like I said, like I just this is what you see on the screen is more like a guide, but it's more to keep us like on track on what are we talking about at each and every one of these slides. So first, let's start talking about defining the self, and what encompasses the self. I mean, like I said, I'm by no means I'm an expert, but one thing we do know is that we tend to think that's like what I am is like my ideas and my body, right? Like the physical world, and then my ideas, because I know that my brain is working all the time, and that's who I am. But if we start learning to add more layers, more volume, more shapes into what I am, what is the self, we can also find more ways of feeling comfortable in our own skin. What do I mean with that? Is that, yes, I am my body, and also I am my thoughts, but that's not the totality of who I am, right? I have relationships, I have belongings, things I like, and like my books, or like I have my biking here, I love it, and that's part of, it's not an essential part of who I am, but it just encompasses the full spectrum or of how I identify myself, right? And I also have feelings, of course, and emotions that arise and go, and habits and memories, and each and every single little bit of that just makes up for who I am, right? And that is myself. So then it's not just about, oh, I can only care or have a self-care routine that is just about taking a hot bath. That is completely valid. But now I have this other range of possibilities where I can take care of myself or of parts of myself and still get back that benefit, that soothing feeling of taking care of things. Like, for instance, to me, one of the parts of the self that I really like is my relationships. And sometimes when I feel like a little down and I feel like, oh, I'm like things are moving around, for instance, I didn't hit up like my background, probably you cannot see, but my apartment is a mess because I'm moving out and my apartment is just messy and everything is moved around. And when things feel like that, I also thought, okay, how can I do a little self-care thing? But since I don't have the space of my apartment, I'm gonna try to focus on my relationships, and that's also part of myself. I reached out to some friends, went to grab a coffee. So just to not make it any longer, just wanted to kind of start this presentation or this conversation by saying there's way more to us than just our bodies. Our bodies are great and we love them, and then there's so much more to that. And then there's care. What is caring and how is that shown or enacted? Again, I think that some of us might have like a biased vision about what care is. For some people, care means like weakness. Care means like if I or something needs care, it means like it's weak, it's needy, it's ill, and that's why it needs care. That is true, and there's nothing wrong to that. But also, we give care to things that are working perfect because we want them to keep working perfect. Like I'm using my bike just because I see it like on my background, but if my bike is working and I want it to keep working, I take care of it and give it maintenance regularly, even if it's not completely broken, because the care is what keeps the bike riding, right? So with that in mind, I think we can start thinking on how care, we don't need to wait for parts or things in our lives to be broken or to feel like extremely exhausted or to be extremely stressed with work or for things to be like boiling to take care of them. We can take care of things that where we feel great as well. In fact, it's very advisable to do that because then from that strength and that joy and peace that those areas of our life that are thriving, that bring us, we can find the strength to then work on some other areas of our life. Okay, I guess I can share, I mean, I've been speaking a lot, but I can share some of like my personal like self-care. Well, to me, I see it as I see it like an investment portfolio. You need to diversify. That's what I tell myself. Like I like to find joy on multiple different little things. So if at some point I don't have access to one of them, I can like turn into something else. Like how I say, I really like I consider my relationships part of who I am, part of myself. So I like to put in the time and the effort to meet with them and hang out, but sometimes there's just no time. There's a lot of work, I'm traveling, etc., etc. So another thing that I know for sure always fulfills me and like brings me joy is riding my bike. And I'm not, just to be clear, like I'm not like a pro biker. I always like to make that that clarification. I bike to commute most of the time, but even that, I just like the activity. I like to like the little adrenaline of like riding on the streets, and there's so many details to that, that when I'm feeling, a little down, oh, I'll grab my bike and I'll just go to the park. I'll go down like 10 blocks, or I don't know, wherever I have to commute, I'll make it an excuse and grab my bike, and then it's not just a commute, then I'm at the same time like piggybacking on whatever I'm doing, and pairing it with something that brings me joy. And that is ultimately what I want to share. Like we can create moments and activities where we take care of our own self, or of our own needs in our everyday lives. We don't need to take like a 5-day retreat to the mountains to be able to have those moments. And then for those who maybe don't have a routine or don't know where to start, I feel like at this point we've shared enough to kind of establish that baseline, saying I think the first step would be to think on activities that make you feel the way you want to feel, because we all want to feel different, right? Like for some people, they like to go to a dancing class because that's exciting and very joyous. But for some people, they like to feel more at ease and relaxed, so they love to read. So think about those moments where you just feel your truest self, you feel at ease, you feel like authentic, no frills, and bring to your mind whatever that moment is, whatever that activity is. And that's your starting point. That's the little activity that from that scene on your mind, you can take, what is that activity that I'm doing on my mind when I feel at my best? And that's where you can start. And it doesn't have to be something to do every day. It has to, is as long as it's something that works for you and that you can do it, that's the very baseline to kickstart this habit of taking care of ourselves and bring ourselves to a point where we feel great. And just to finish this talk, I call this the perfect self-care routine because it's more like a joke. It does not exist. It does not exist because we are all different. And even on our own lives, things move around. So whatever I love to do and however I take care of myself might not always be executed as I envision. So when we let go of the concept of perfect something, the perfect self-care routine, and realize that it can be very simple things like a walk, things that we're very used to, like going to the gym, we can start feeling better about ourselves. Like we made it so far in life and we've been taking care of ourselves. And caring for things is not just for the weak, or it's not just for the ill or for whoever is incapable. It's also for people who are very capable and want to keep achieving things in life, which I think we all are here because we're participating on this Woman in Lighting and Design conversation. And that was it. I thank you a lot to everyone who showed up. And I think now we're going to jump into our yoga session.
Thank you, Mariana. That was very helpful. Thank you so much.